There are certain mistakes you make in your early 20s that don't hit you until much later, usually around the time you realize how easily you could have died. Running out of gas on a forgotten service road in the Pacific Northwest is one of those mistakes. This happened in late October of 2015. I was 23, broke, overconfident, and living in a cramped apartment in Eugene, Oregon. My girlfriend lived in Seattle then, and I was planning to surprise her for the weekend. I didn't think twice about driving a beat-up 2004 Honda Civic with a gas gauge that lied more than a politician. It would stay at halfway forever. Then, free fall to empty like it was skydiving. I left at 8 p.m., hoping to avoid I-5 traffic. An hour later, I found myself parked in a sea of brake lights, a massive pileup. Traffic dead for miles. I checked my GPS, impatient and stupid, and it suggested a scenic back road detour through the Cascade foothills. Scenic in the daytime, pitch black, fog-choked terror at night. But I was 23, invincible, so I took the exit. The first part wasn't bad. I blasted music, drummed on the steering wheel, coasted through tall trees on winding roads. Streetlights disappeared, then houses, then any sign of civilization. Just my crappy headlights slicing through fog thick enough to chew. That's when I noticed the gas needle. It wasn't hovering above empty, it was plastered below it. The little orange warning light glared at me like it had been trying to get my attention for the past hour. "Oh, come on," I muttered, checking GPS. Nearest gas station, 22 miles. The Civic coughed like an old smoker. I turned off the music to save fuel, even though I knew that was pointless. Panic makes you do dumb things. 5 minutes later, the engine jerked. An ugly mechanical hiccup. "Don't you dare," I whispered. Another sputter. Then the RPMs dropped. Then the steering wheel turned to concrete in my hands. The car crawled forward, losing momentum, until I managed to muscle it onto the narrow shoulder. Gravel crunched under the tires. The engine died completely. I sat in the dark, listening to my heartbeat echo in the silence. It was 11:30 p.m. I grabbed my phone. No service. Of course. I got out to check the sky, hoping for a miracle signal. The cold bit through my hoodie instantly. The silence wasn't peaceful. It was predatory, like the trees were leaning in, waiting. No signal. Nothing but endless, wet black. I got back in the car and locked the doors. I told myself I'd wait for a passing driver, but in the 40 minutes I'd been on that road, I hadn't seen a single pair of headlights. I reclined the seat, trying to conserve what little body heat I had. An hour passed. Then, a faint glow appeared in my rearview mirror. Headlights. Finally, I shot upright in my seat. The lights swayed slowly, weaving through the curves. I reached for the handle, ready to wave them down. But something in me, something primal, whispered, "Wait, see who it is first." The vehicle slowed as it approached. It was an old pickup truck, dark blue or black, covered in mud, with a heavy steel brush guard on the front. The kind of truck that looked like it had pushed things out of its path. Big things. It rolled to a stop beside me, facing opposite direction, driver's side to driver's side. The engine idled rough and wet, like it was choking on something. The windows were tinted black. I waited for them to roll down. They didn't. "Hey," I shouted through a crack in my window. "I'm out of gas. Can you help?" Nothing. Just the idling. 10 seconds. 20. 30. My stomach tightened. Finally, the truck engine cut off. The sudden silence punched the air out of the night. The driver's door creaked open. A tall man stepped out, wearing a Carhartt jacket and a baseball cap pulled low. He looked like a local, strong build, full beard, mud-caked boots, holding a massive metal flashlight. He walked around the front of his truck and shined the light directly into my face. I flinched. "Car trouble?" he asked. Deep voice. Rough. Dry. "Yeah," I said, trying not to sound scared. "Ran out of gas." hoping to get a ride to the last station I passed. He lowered the light. His eyes scanned my back seat like he was inventorying me. "There's a 24-hour place 30 miles north," he said. "I'm headed that way." He gestured toward his truck. "Come on. You'll freeze out here." Logically, it made sense, but every instinct screamed no. He smelled like copper, metallic, wet, like dried blood. "You know what?" I forced a laugh. "My brother's actually on his way. He had a gas can. Should be here any minute." The man didn't blink. "Your phone doesn't work out here, son," he said calmly. My heart stuttered. I never told him I had no service. I got a text out right as it died. I pressed. "He's close." He stared at me for a long, heavy moment. Then he tapped the roof of my Civic with gloved fingers in a slow, repetitive rhythm. "Suit yourself," he finally said. He walked back to his truck, got in, revved the engine so hard the entire vehicle shook, and then drove off into the dark. I exhaled shakily, locked my doors again, watched his taillights fade around a curve. 5 minutes passed, then I blinked. There was a red glow behind the trees where he disappeared. His brake lights. He'd stopped. He was sitting there, waiting. Then the red glow vanished. He killed his lights. He wasn't leaving. He was waiting for me to get out of the car. The Civic felt like a coffin. My breath fogged the glass. Every instinct in my body screamed that death was sitting just around that bend. I opened the glove box. Found a small screwdriver. Not much, but better than nothing. The fog outside thickened, rolling down from the tree line like smoke. And then I heard it. A single crunch of gravel. Not from the road. From the woods on my left. My pulse spiked. He hadn't walked down the road. He'd circled through the trees. I slid down in my seat, breath shallow, clutching the screwdriver with white knuckles. Slow, deliberate footsteps. A shadow broke through the fog. He stepped out of the tree line, moving toward my driver's side door. He stood there for a moment, staring at the Civic. Then he leaned close and wiped a circle into the fogged glass with 2 fingers. Our eyes met through the window. His smile crawled across his face, slow and jagged. He leaned in, lips nearly touching the glass. "Your brother ain't coming," he whispered. The sound was muffled, but the words cut clean through me. He grabbed the door handle and yanked. The whole car shook. The lock held. "Open the door," he said, "or I'll drag you out." I have a gun," I shouted. "I'll shoot." He laughed, a raspy, wheezing chuckle. "No, you don't." He reached into his jacket, pulled out a window punch tool. He was going to shatter the glass. I slammed my hand on the horn. The Civic screamed into the night. He flinched, and then something else screamed back. A massive truck horn, louder, deeper, blasted from up the road. 2 blinding headlights tore through the curve. A logging truck. The man froze, eyes wide, then bolted into the woods like an animal. The logging truck skidded to a stop 20 feet from my bumper. "You okay?" the driver yelled, jumping out. I stumbled out of the car, pointing at the woods, sobbing. He tried to. He's in there." The driver didn't chase him. He just dragged me into his cab. "Let's go," he said. Now. The cab of the logging truck felt like the safest place in the world at that moment. Warm, bright, loud. The driver, a thick-armed guy in flannel with a beard that looked like it had survived multiple winters, slammed the door shut behind me as if sealing out a monster. "You're white as a sheet," he muttered, climbing into the driver's seat. What the hell happened? I tried to answer, but my throat locked up. Every time I opened my mouth, all I could picture was that man's face smeared against the glass, whispering that my brother wasn't coming. "Don't worry," the driver said, his tone softening as he pulled the truck back onto the service road. "We'll get you somewhere safe." He kept checking the mirrors as we drove, his eyes narrowing at every shadow. After almost 20 minutes of silence, headlights finally appeared ahead of us. Civilization. Real. Populated civilization. A diner. A gas station. Houses. Street lights. Things I had taken for granted my entire life, but now felt like miracles. He dropped me off at the police station in the nearest town. I thanked him so many times it started to sound like begging. Inside, I filed a report with trembling hands while an officer offered me lukewarm coffee. My voice cracked every time I tried to describe what happened. The truck that stopped. The man staring at me through the fogged window. The copper smell. The window punch. And the worst part, the moment I realized he'd deliberately driven around the bend just to wait for me. The officers listened, nodding, taking notes. They didn't question my story, not the details, not the fear, not the near breakdown I had halfway through the statement. They said the area was known for trouble and that they'd check it out. About an hour later, 2 deputies returned from where my car had been left. They had found it intact, doors locked, nothing stolen. But then one of the deputies lowered his voice. There was something else, he said. On the ground nearby. My stomach twisted. What do you mean? We think it belonged to him. He placed a sealed evidence bag on the table. Inside was a black duffel bag, caked with mud. And inside that bag, duct tape, zip ties, a thick blue tarp, a large hunting knife, rope, a pair of stained work gloves, a kill kit, the kind serial predators build over time. The deputy continued. Bag was buried under leaves near the ditch, close to where you said he walked out from the woods. I felt dizzy, so he was waiting for me. I whispered. He knew someone would eventually break down on that road. The other deputy cleared his throat. It gets darker. He pulled out several driver's licenses. 4 of them. Men and women. Different states. All young. All missing. My blood turned cold. We don't know if these individuals were harmed, he said, but none of them were ever found. I couldn't speak. We searched the area for the man. He continued, but he was already gone. No vehicle. No tracks heading toward the highway. Whoever he is, he knows how to disappear. They put out an alert for the truck. Old, dark pickup with a brush guard. But they also said trucks like that are everywhere in Oregon. Thousands of them. And most of them driven by normal, harmless people. Normal people don't stalk you through the woods. They don't wipe a circle into your fogged window and whisper to you. They don't keep zip ties and tarps in a bag buried in the dirt. But monsters do. The police arranged a tow for my Civic the next morning. I slept on a bench outside the station until sunrise, too afraid to close my eyes anywhere else. Every time I drifted off, I'd jerk awake, thinking I heard footsteps in the gravel. When the sun finally rose, we drove out to retrieve my car. Seeing it again made my stomach twist. It looked so small, so fragile, sitting alone on that damp service road. The fog was gone now, burned away by daylight, but the place still felt haunted. The air seemed heavier there, the trees too quiet. I could practically feel the man's presence lingering between them. While the tow truck driver hooked up the Civic, I walked to the ditch where the duffel bag had been found. There were still footprints in the mud, large ones, heading right toward the driver's side of my car. He had planned out how to get me, where to drag me, what road to take me down. He wasn't improvising. I looked down at the dirt and quietly thanked whatever twist of fate sent that logging truck my way at the exact moment it did. The deputy spent another hour searching the woods. Nothing. No blood. No tools. No other tracks. Just a few snapped branches and a cold silence that seemed to stretch forever. One deputy walked up beside me. "You were lucky," he said. "If that trucker hadn't come around that bend when he did." He didn't finish the sentence. He didn't have to. I wish the story ended there, with police catching him, with justice, with closure. But real life doesn't always work like that. They never found the man. They never found his truck. And they never found the owners of the licenses in that duffel bag. My case file is still officially labeled. Attempted abduction, suspect unknown. To this day, I can't drive long distances at night. I don't trust service roads. And I never let my tank drop below half. Ever. No matter where I'm going. Because sometimes, when I'm lying awake at night, I swear I can still see him, that silhouette stepping out of the woods, pressing his face to the glass, smiling as he whispered, "Your brother ain't coming." And every once in a while, when my house creaks in the winter or a branch scrapes the siding outside my window, it sounds just like a heavy boot crushing gravel, like someone circling back, like someone waiting for the lights to go off. The Mojave Desert is the last place you ever want to break down. People see it on postcards, all orange sunsets and pretty mesas, but they never feel the heat that comes off that sand like an open furnace. They never hear the silence that swallows everything, like the world ended and forgot to tell you. Back in July of 2017, my girlfriend Nova and I learned that lesson the hard way. We were moving from San Diego to Austin in my granddad's old 2008 Ford Explorer, a beast with more mileage than sense. We'd packed it so heavy with boxes, clothing, a futon mattress, even Nova's desk lamp, that the whole SUV sagged like it was exhausted with us. We were young, optimistic, and dumb enough to think we could cross the Mojave with 1 bar of gas and a shortcut I found on a forum 3 days earlier. The heat was so intense, the road shimmered like boiling water. The mountains in the distance looked warped, like they'd melt if we got close enough. Nova sat in the passenger seat, the feet on the dashboard, her phone raised like she was trying to catch a signal from God himself. "No service," she muttered. "Again. It'll come back," I said, more confident than I actually felt. "Besides, look around. This is amazing. It's a desert, William. A big, empty oven. Keep your eyes on the gas gauge." She wasn't wrong. The little orange fuel light had flickered on 20 minutes ago, and the needle had been sinking ever since. I pretended not to notice, just like I pretended the AC wasn't destroying our fuel economy. We passed a sign an hour back that said, "Last gas, 40 miles. 40 miles came and went. So did 50, but the station never appeared. Soon the highway itself shrank into a lonely 2-lane strip cutting through endless red dirt and silent scrub. Then the Explorer hiccuped. A single, ugly jerk. Nova snapped upright. "William." "What was that?" "Probably nothing," I said. It wasn't nothing. The engine sputtered again, louder, then completely died. The power steering locked. The air conditioner stopped. The only sound left was the tires crunching sand as the SUV coasted to a pathetic stop on the shoulder. We were out of gas. Nova didn't scream, didn't curse. She just sat there, slowly shaking her head, her eyes going glassy with fear. "It's 105 degrees, she whispered. "We have 2 bottles of water, and no service." "I know," I said, though admitting it tasted bitter. "Let's figure it out." I stepped out into the sun and immediately regretted it. The heat hit me like I'd opened an oven door with my face. The desert was silent, completely silent. Not even wind. I climbed onto the Explorer's roof, scanning the horizon for anything that looked man-made. Nothing but dirt and rocks. I yelled down, "Anything on your phone? Emergency calls only." She called back, "William, we're screwed." Then I saw it. To the north, off the main road, maybe 2 miles into the scrub, a faint glint of metal. A roof. A shed. Something. And near it, what looked like a tall pole. "I see something," I said. "North. Maybe a ranch. Maybe a junkyard. But it's better than roasting alive in the car." "I am not walking into the desert," Nova argued. "That's literally how horror movies start." "Nova," I said, sliding off the roof. "Everything in horror movies is based on something real. And the real version usually ends because someone stayed in the car." It took 20 minutes of convincing. We drank some water, packed the essentials, left a note on the dashboard. Out of gas. Walking north. The 14th of July, 2017. And we started walking. Walking in the Mojave at sunset is like stepping into a nightmare painted orange and gold. The shadows stretch into strange shapes, and everything in the distance looks like it's moving, even when it's not. The ground was uneven. Every rock looked like a rattlesnake. The heat rose from the sand in waves. We walked in silence for a long time, mostly because talking felt like wasting oxygen. When the structure finally came into full view, both relief and dread hit me at the same time. It wasn't a ranch. It wasn't a house. It was a salvage yard. A chain-link fence wrapped around a massive plot of land filled with rusted cars stacked 3 or 4 high. Broken glass glittered in the dirt like diamonds. A double-wide trailer sagged near the middle, and beside it stood a big metal shed, and near the gate, an old-style, gravity-fed gas pump. Thank God. I breathed. "William," Nova whispered. "This place feels wrong." She wasn't wrong. Something about the silence here was different, heavier, but there were tire tracks. Recent ones. "Let's just get the gas," I said. "Then we're gone." We stepped inside the open gate. The smell hit immediately. Gasoline. Sour trash. Something metallic beneath it. The trailer's windows were covered from the inside with aluminum foil, reflecting our distorted faces as we approached. I knocked on the door. No answer. I knocked again. Louder. Still nothing. Nova tugged my sleeve. "William." "Look at the cars." I turned. In the fading light, I noticed the tires on a Camry near the entrance, perfectly inflated. The inspection sticker, current. Same with the RAV4 behind it, and the F-150 next to that. "These aren't old junkers," she whispered. "These are new." A cold feeling trickled down my spine. "These are people's cars," I said. "People who didn't make it out." Before I could say anything more, the trailer door unlocked from the inside. It creaked open slowly, revealing nothing but darkness. Then a voice floated out, warm, polite, and deeply wrong. "Come in out of that heat," it crooned. Doors open. Every hair on my neck stood up. "We just need gas," I said, forcing my voice to stay level. "Do you sell the keys inside?" The voice interrupted. "Come take it." I squinted, trying to adjust to the darkness inside. There was someone seated in a chair facing us. Still. Too still. My eyes adjusted. It wasn't a man. It was a mannequin, dressed in flannel, wearing a wig, a walkie-talkie duct taped to its plastic hand. I said. The voice on the walkie crackled. "Come inside." Nova grabbed my arm. "We leave," she hissed. Right now. She was right. We turned toward the gate, and froze. It was closed. Not just closed, held shut. A huge man stood in front of it, wearing a welding mask, gripping a cattle prod in his hands. He tapped it once. Blue sparks jumped like angry insects. He didn't run. He didn't speak. He simply stepped forward, one heavy boot at a time. Nova squeezed my hand until I thought she'd break the bones. "William." "I know," I said the only word that made sense. "Run." The moment I yelled, "Run," Nova didn't hesitate. She sprinted deeper into the maze of rusted cars, her footsteps crunching over broken glass and sun-baked metal. The man in the welder's mask followed with terrifying calmness. No shouting, no sprinting, just steady, heavy footsteps, like a predator that knew we wouldn't get far. And he was right. This wasn't a junkyard. It was a trap, a cage made from other people's failures to escape. We tore through tight aisles between stacked sedans and trucks, the shadows twisting into nightmarish shapes as the last rays of sunlight died. The metal walls around us made it impossible to tell where the footsteps were coming from. Everything echoed. "Left," I whispered, yanking Nova around a corner. The cattle prod cracked in the distance. It echoed off the cars like thunder inside a coffin. We crouched behind the rusted skeleton of an overturned pickup, both of us gasping, sweat mixing with dust. "William," she whispered. "There's 2 of them." "What?" The voice in the trailer, he sounded old. The guy with the mask. That's someone else. The realization sank in like cold water. 2 voices, 2 men, 2 roles. 1 to lure, 1 to hunt. The mannequins, the cars, the foil windows, the walkie-talkie. Everything was a system, a practiced operation, refined over years. A sharp metallic bang rang out behind us. So loud Nova jumped. He was hitting the cars. Not at random, but like he knew the layout and was flushing us deeper inside. "We can't stay in here," I whispered. "We have to get out." "How?" she whispered back. "The gate's blocked. Fence. We climb." We moved low, darting between car frames until we spotted it, the back perimeter. The razor wire fence stretched across the desert, shimmering faintly in the twilight, and at the far corner, stacked high against it, 3 cars, angled like steps. "We climbed that," I said. We broke into a sprint, but the moment we set foot on the first car's hood, the welder's mask stepped into view at the far end of the row. His head tilted slowly, like he was disappointed we'd made it this far. Then he moved, not walking, charging. I shoved Nova up the hood of the second car. The metal groaned and dented beneath us. I scrambled behind her, my hands slipping on dust-coated paint. "Go," I shouted. "Top car. Jump from there." She pulled herself onto the third car, reaching back for me with trembling hands. Behind me, the masked man reached the bottom car. He didn't climb on slowly. He slammed a gloved hand onto the bumper and started hauling himself up with terrifying strength. The entire stack shook violently. The metal screeched. Dust rained down like ash. He was climbing fast. Too fast. I reached for Nova's hand and felt it close around my wrist. But at that exact moment, the man's hand grabbed my ankle. His grip was so strong I felt bones grind. I screamed, raw, animal panic. Nova pulled. The masked man yanked. My leg felt like it was going to rip out of its socket. Through the slit in his mask, I saw his eyes, white, wide, and filled with deranged excitement. He wasn't wearing welding gear for protection. He was wearing it because he liked hiding his face while he killed people. I twisted, reached into my pocket, and grabbed the only thing I had, my key ring, a dozen jagged metal keys. I stabbed downward, jamming them into the crease between his glove and his wrist. He roared, a violent, muffled bellow that vibrated in my bones. His grip loosened. Just a fraction. Just enough. Nova yanked me upward, and I crawled onto the top car. There was no time to think, no time to look back. I lunged for the fence, razor wire glinting above us, and jumped. The wire tore into my shoulder as my shirt caught. A strip of skin ripped away like peeling tape. And for a moment, I hung suspended, screaming silently. Then the fabric gave way, and I fell. I hit the dirt hard. The wind knocked from my lungs. Nova grabbed my arms and dragged me away as the masked man climbed the final car, shaking the fence in frustration, screaming wordless rage. But he didn't jump. He couldn't. He was too heavy, and the drop was too dangerous. We ran, hobbling, stumbling, half crawling into the open desert, away from the road, away from the salvage yard, away from the monsters. We didn't stop for 6 hours. Not until headlights appeared on a distant highway. A semi-truck slowed. The driver opened his door, his face pale when he saw us. "What the hell happened to you two?" "Please," I gasped. "Help." He drove us to the nearest town without asking another question. The sheriff's deputies drove us back to the coordinates at sunrise. But the place was gone. Not empty, gone. Every car, every stack, every scrap of metal vanished. The trailer was empty. The windows were bare. The floors were scrubbed clean. No mannequins. No generators. No gasoline. No masked man. Nothing but disturbed dirt and deep tire tracks from heavy machinery. "Looks like someone cleared out in a hurry," a deputy said. writing us off with a sympathetic smirk. Probably thieves. Chop shop. They scatter fast. Did a chop shop leave this? Nova snapped, pointing at the ground. Half buried in the sand was a single object, a plastic mannequin hand, with duct tape still wrapped around the wrist. The deputies exchanged glances, uncomfortable, unsure, but they said nothing. They filed their report, and that was the end of the investigation. Officially, unofficially, a month later, after we'd moved to Austin, I received a small cardboard box on my doorstep. No return address, no postage. Someone had hand-delivered it. I opened it with shaking fingers. Inside, resting on cotton padding, was my key ring, the same one I used to stab that man's wrist. There was a note beneath it, handwritten, shaky, uneven. You forgot this. We didn't forget you. I dropped the box like it was on fire. Nova screamed when she saw it. We moved apartments within a week. I sold the Explorer. I don't drive long stretches of desert anymore. And sometimes, late at night, I swear I hear a walkie-talkie crackle outside my window, a voice whispering through static. Come inside. People assume the scariest place to break down is an empty highway, or maybe a desert road where heat kills you long before help arrives. They're wrong. The worst place to run out of gas is in the Appalachian Mountains, where the darkness has weight, where sound dies before it reaches the trees, and where people vanish all the time and no one asks why. Back in November of 2018, I learned that the hard way. I was a sophomore at the University of Kentucky. My roommate, Toby, a 6'3" ex-high school linebacker built like a ranch gate, invited me to spend Thanksgiving with his family in rural West Virginia. It sounded fun, like a break from campus stress, and honestly, I trusted Toby. He was calm, solid, the kind of guy who could walk through a haunted house without flinching. I was the opposite, wiry, anxious, always expecting something to go wrong. We left Lexington at 4 p.m., which was mistake number 1. By the time we reached the mountains, the sun had disappeared completely, leaving nothing but a bruised purple sky that made the trees look like jagged black claws. The second mistake was trusting Toby when he said he knew a shortcut. We were stuck in gridlock traffic. A massive accident had closed the main highway for miles. Flashing hazard lights, people honking, rain smearing the windshield. Toby leaned forward, squinting through the glass. "No way I'm sitting in this all night," he muttered. "There's a back road through Blackwood Ridge. My dad and I used it all the time." I glanced at the GPS. The road looked like it had been drawn by someone having a seizure. "Toby, that thing isn't even paved." "It's fine," he insisted. "I've driven it 100 times. I should have pushed harder, made him wait. But I trusted him. The idea of sitting in traffic for hours sounded worse than a bumpy detour. We pulled off the highway and headed into the trees. At first, it wasn't bad. The Jeep Wrangler handled the tight curves like a champ. Toby blasted a podcast, and we joked about professors, dorm food, and stupid campus drama. Then everything changed. The pavement disappeared. Fog rolled in so thick it felt alive. The temperature dropped like we'd driven into a freezer. And the road, if you could call it that, narrowed until it felt like the trees were squeezing us. The branches overhead laced together, blocking out what little moonlight there was. The GPS showed nothing, just gray. "Dude," I said quietly, "maybe we should turn." That's when we hit it. A rock. No, not a rock. A slab. Positioned perfectly across the road, like some demented speed bump from hell. Toby jerked the wheel, but the Jeep skidded on loose gravel, sliding sideways. The sound rattled through the entire vehicle like a metal scream. The Jeep bounced. Toby cursed. We came to a hard stop. "You okay?" he asked, breathing hard. "Yeah, you." He didn't answer. His eyes were on the gas gauge, which was dropping fast. Then we smelled it. Gasoline. We scrambled out of the Jeep. Toby knelt, shining his phone beneath the chassis. A stream of dark liquid poured out, soaking into the dirt and gravel. "Shit," Toby whispered. "The tank's punctured. We're losing everything." In minutes, our 3/4 tank bled into the mountainside. "So what now?" I asked. "No service here," Toby said, checking his phone. "Blackwood Ridge is a dead zone. Everything was quiet. Too quiet. No cars. No animals. Just the sound of gas dripping. We walk," Toby said finally. "There's a hunting lodge about 4 miles up." We grabbed our bags and started walking. People romanticize the Appalachians. They don't talk about how the darkness there feels predatory. The fog wrapped around us so thick I couldn't see more than 10 feet. Branches snapped in ways I couldn't identify. Shapes flickered at the edge of my vision, only to vanish when I turned my head. We'd been walking almost an hour when Toby stopped suddenly. "You hear that?" "What?" I whispered. He turned slowly, scanning the trees. An engine, far away, like idling. I held my breath. Nothing but wind. Probably just the fog messing with sound. I said, but even as I said it, my voice shook. We kept walking. I kept checking behind us. Another 20 minutes passed before we saw a mailbox. Just a silhouette at first, then a driveway, and then, through the fog, a house. Not a lodge. A small, white, single-story cabin with a wraparound porch. One window lit with a soft yellow glow. "I don't care what that is," I muttered. "I'm freezing." We approached the porch. No cars, but deep tire tracks cut through the mud around back. I knocked. Nothing. Knocked harder. "Hello." "We're stranded." Still nothing. Toby peered through the lit window. "Sam," he whispered. "Come here." I looked inside. A living room that hadn't been updated since the 90s. Floral couch. Wood paneling. TV. But everything looked disturbed. Papers everywhere. A coffee table buried under. A map. A huge map of the area. Pinned open. "That's weird," I whispered. The doors cracked. Toby said. He was right. The front door was open half an inch. "Toby, maybe we shouldn't." He pushed it open. "Hello. Anyone home?" We stepped inside. It was warm, but the smell was off. Not rotten, not moldy, but earthy, like freshly dug soil. "Toby," I whispered, "let's just find a phone and leave." He wasn't listening. He was staring at the map. "What the hell is this?" I approached. The map covered 3 counties, ridges, hunting trails, roads, and stuck across it were dozens of red pushpins, each with handwritten dates and times beside them. October 12, November 4, November 14. I read. Then I saw it. A pin stuck exactly on the curve where we crashed. Next to it, the 21st of November, 2018, 6:45 p.m. My blood ran cold. "Toby," I whispered slowly. "That's today. That's 45 minutes ago." He looked at me. "How did someone record the time of our crash?" "Before we even got here. Don't forget this now." A floorboard creaked in the hallway. Toby's eyes widened. "Sam, someone else is inside this house." Before I could move, before I could breathe, the door behind us clicked. Locked. And then a slow, tired voice drifted from the hallway behind the kitchen. "I wouldn't do that. Boys." We spun toward the sound. A man stood in the doorway. Gray cardigan, reading glasses, a mug of tea in one hand, a suppressed pistol in the other. "You weren't supposed to come in." He sighed. "You were supposed to wait by the car. That's how the system works." He sipped his tea. "You really complicated things." Toby stepped in front of me. "Let us go. We won't say anything." The man smiled. Not kindly, not cruelly, just businesslike. "You saw the map," he said softly. "I can't let you leave now." He raised the gun. "Run." Toby screamed and charged him like a human battering ram. They collided. The gun fired with a muffled thwip. Dust rained from the ceiling. "Toby." I screamed. "Back door now," he shouted. I ran. I didn't look back. Not even when the second gunshot echoed behind me. I didn't want to leave him. When Toby yelled for me to run, my brain split in two, to one part screaming to help him, the other part screaming even louder that if I didn't move, I'd be next. Survival won by instinct, not courage. I sprinted down the hallway and slammed into the metal crash bar on the back door. It burst open and I tumbled into freezing mud. My ears rang from the suppressed gunshot. I scrambled to my feet and looked back. "Toby," I shouted. Another soft thwip echoed through the doorway. A heavy body crashed to the floor. Then a silhouette stepped into the frame. The man in the cardigan, adjusting his glasses. Calm. Efficient. Not even breathing hard. He saw me and smiled. I bolted. The woods behind the house were a maze of briars and sharp branches. They tore into my clothes, slashed my arms, and clawed at my face. But adrenaline numbed everything. All I knew was I had to put as much distance between me and that cabin as possible. The fog swallowed the world, making every tree identical, every shadow threatening. The terrain sloped upward, and my lungs burned as I clawed at roots and rocks to climb a steep ridge. Halfway up, my foot slipped, and I fell, slamming my knee on a stump. I bit down on a scream. Any noise felt like an invitation for death to find me. I crawled the last few feet and collapsed behind a massive oak at the top of the ridge. For a while, all I could do was gasp silently and fight the spinning in my head. When I finally dared to peek over the ridge, I wished I hadn't. The house sat below like a faded photograph. The lone porch light glowed through the fog. In the driveway, the front door swung open. Another man walked out. Different build, different clothes. Black coveralls instead of a cardigan. So there were at least two of them. He circled toward the back, meeting the man with the pistol. They talked casually, like coworkers discussing a shift. Then they went inside. A moment later, they dragged something out. I knew instantly what it was. Toby. His arms were limp. His boots left long, dark tracks on the mud. They dragged him around the side of the house, toward a large, detached garage I hadn't noticed earlier, its bay doors wide open. Yellow light spilled from the interior. I forced myself to look, just once. Inside were rows of shelves, perfectly organized. Suitcases, backpacks, boots, jackets, dozens of them, maybe hundreds. An industrial drain in the concrete floor, a pressure washer, a tarp stained with something dark, a processing room. For people, my stomach twisted so violently I nearly vomited. One of the men walked to the driveway. A sound echoed in the distance, low, deep, mechanical, a diesel engine. A massive flatbed tow truck rolled up the gravel drive, headlights off. It backed slowly toward the garage. The driver didn't ask questions, didn't greet the others. He just got out, walked around back, and helped the men load something large and heavy onto the truck, covered in a thick tarp. I didn't need to see underneath. I already knew. They were preparing to clean the site, to erase us completely. My breath shook so violently I had to clamp my hand over my mouth to avoid making noise. "Please, please don't look up here," I whispered. But they didn't. They were too busy dismantling everything, moving equipment, wiping surfaces, closing up the house. Within minutes, the porch light flickered off. The men moved inside. A single, dim light turned on briefly in the kitchen, then went dark. The entire property went still, silent, dead. I stayed on that ridge for almost 6 hours. I didn't dare move. Not even when I started shaking uncontrollably from cold. Not even when the sun began creeping over the horizon. Only when I heard morning bird song, a painfully normal sound in a nightmare landscape did I risk slipping away. I hiked deeper into the woods, avoiding the road entirely. My body felt like it wasn't mine anymore, like it was operating on autopilot. My hands were numb, bleeding. My knee throbbed with every step. 5 miles later, I staggered out onto the interstate. A state trooper found me walking along the shoulder, covered in mud and scratches, babbling nonsense. I tried to explain. I tried to tell them everything. The rock trap, the map, the pins, the house, the men, Toby. They exchanged glances, the kind people give when they think you're traumatized beyond reason. But they still sent units. 6 cruisers, 2 forensic trucks, a whole team, and they found the house. Only, it wasn't the house we saw. When police entered, the furniture was gone, the map table was gone, the lights were gone. The entire house was scrubbed with industrial cleaner, every drawer emptied, every surface wiped. The air reeked of bleach and cold metal. It looked like no one had lived there for years. The garage was empty too, not a shelf, not a suitcase, not a single trace of anything. But they found one thing, under the floorboards in the living room, wedged between the planks. A single object, a red pushpin, just like the ones on the map. The final nail came when they located Toby's Jeep. It had been pushed into a ravine miles away, smashed, burned, and containing partial remains. Dental records confirmed it was Toby. Official cause of death, car accident followed by vehicle fire. That's what they put in the report. They said I must have walked away in shock and hallucinated the rest. Even though I described the house exactly, even though they found a red pin inside, even though the tow truck's tire tracks matched perfectly, they ignored all of it. Now, I know the truth. Those pins weren't random. Those dates weren't random. And that cabin wasn't an accident. It was a system. A machine. Operated by men who clean up roadside accidents like a business. I started tracking similar disappearances. Car breakdowns. Burned out vehicles. Missing travelers. There are dozens. Hundreds. All scattered across states. I keep a map on my computer. A digital one, marked with red pins of my own. And that's how I found it. The one pin that doesn't match the others. The gold pin. The one I saw moments before I ran from that house. Marked in the same neat handwriting. Pinned directly over the city where I live now. Next to it, the 25th of December 2025. Christmas Day. 2 weeks from now. At first I tried to tell myself. I imagined it. That trauma tricked me. But yesterday, when I got home, there was something sitting on my welcome mat. A rock. Not just any rock. A jagged, slate gray shard shaped exactly like the one that tore through Toby's gas tank. They know who I am. They know I escaped. And they've never tolerated loose ends. So now, every night, I sleep with the lights on. And every morning, I check under my car before I drive. Because I don't know when they're coming. Only that they are.